We're at the Enoch Turner Schoolhouse in downtown Toronto. This is the oldest surviving schoolhouse in the city, having been built in 1848.
Back in 1848, who'd even heard of learning disabilities? There were slow learners, but there were also lots of jobs in factories and on the farm where just a little bit of reading, writing, and arithmetic went a long way.
That is not the case today, of course. The skills we need for today's jobs are much higher, and the expectations that parents have for their kids are also very high.
That's why assessing and addressing learning disabilities has become a great challenge for the education system today.
Yeah, tonight we're going to focus on learning disabilities and the kids in the school system who have to cope with them every day.
It's a special edition on learning disabilities on Studio 2.
Up next, Arrowsmith School, where dreams can come true.
A lot of kids with learning disabilities don't dare to dream. They've just stopped dreaming. They have often no sense of a future for themselves, and that's very, very tragic.
There were lots of people with learning disabilities who went on to be very successful. I'm thinking about Sir Winston Churchill and John Lennon. One of the greatest minds of the 20th century, Albert Einstein. Did you know he had dyslexia?
Some learning disabilities you might think are so profound that it's impossible for people who suffer from them to learn anything at all. But such is not the case. There are revolutionary new programs out there, starting at places like a school called Arrowsmith.
Arrowsmith is a one-room schoolhouse in which students with learning disabilities learn how to use parts of their brain that are not functioning.
It was started by a woman named Barbara Arrowsmith Young, who herself had suffered from learning disabilities her whole life long, and she put in place a revolutionary new program to deal with those problems.
And now she's helping people just like Jeremy. Take a look.
When someone has a learning disability, they feel that they don't fit in. They end up often feeling stupid or dumb.
It's like I was in a box. I wasn't able to break out of that and actually express what I was thinking.
There's a filter which prevents you from participating, a filter that distorts the world. What I believe this work is doing is removing those filters.
My name is Jeremy Johnson. I'm 17. When I came here, I just finished my grade 10 year. I wasn't able to read very well. I could only read at a grade 1 reading level.
In order to remove the barrier, what you have to do is do brain exercises. So there are exercises for specific areas to strengthen them.
I'd like you to maintain that level of accuracy.
It's like doing weightlifting for your brain.
The programs that we do here, they look quite boring, and they are. They've helped me with sounding words out, to be able to sound them out quicker, to be able to read faster and more fluent, to be able to spell words. Before, I wasn't able to hold the visual image of words in my head, so I wasn't able to recognize them when I read or to spell them.
In the past, if someone came with a learning disability, you'd try to teach them to work around the weak area. So the weak area never got strengthened. Adjacent areas might get possibly strengthened. She isolates the weak area, strengthens it, so that what happens is people start to spontaneously be able to do the activities they couldn't before.
This is a picture of the brain reading out loud, and whenever you're doing an activity like reading, a number of brain areas come together to carry out that task. This area here is involved in the eye tracking as you're reading. This area down here, which is Broca's area, is involved in phonics and sounding out words. Because they're reading out loud, the lips are moving, so this is the kinesthetic, telling the lips where to go. This area back here is remembering the symbol pattern, the recognition, closing your eyes and being able to remember what the word actually looks like. And again, because they're reading out loud, these areas in here are hearing what the person is reading and remembering. It's auditory memory, memory for words, memory for phrases. Jeremy had a number of difficulties. Jeremy had this piece here, so the eye tracking wasn't working. He had the Broca's area, so he couldn't remember the speech sounds to sound out words effectively. And he also had the visual recognition. He couldn't remember the picture of the word. And he also had what I call lexical memory, the part remembering the actual words. So he probably never would have learned how to read beyond a grade 1 level, given the number of pieces that he had that weren't working properly.
When I looked at a sheet of paper, I wasn't able to identify what the words were. I wasn't able to read them. And it took a lot of effort to read because I'd have to sound out every word and I wouldn't remember it. So the next time I came to the same word, I'd have to sound it out again. So it took a lot of energy, and by the time I got through a paragraph or a page, I wouldn't usually understand what I read because it takes so long.
We first noticed that there was something different about the way that Jeremy was learning when he was delayed in speaking. At the age of 3, he still wasn't saying any phrases, really, just individual words, and he used many different hand signals to get a point across.
He didn't seem to be able to remember the letters of the alphabet, and we tried many different things. Being teachers, we tried to use the different senses, cutting out letters of the alphabet, putting them on the floor, having him step on the letters, tracing them out, doing many different things, but nothing seemed to work.
Initially we thought maybe it was just developmental and in a bit of time he would recover, but by the time grade 1 had finished, he still was not reading.
When Jeremy was in grade 3, we took him to Aurelia to a pediatrician. The pediatrician came out and spoke to us and said that Jeremy had an extremely severe, very specific learning disability. And his words to us were, don't expect that Jeremy will ever be university material. It was a terrific blow to us because to really experience the loss of the expectations that we'd had for Jeremy, because we saw him as being so intelligent verbally, and he just seemed to have so much going for him. And we'd always thought that he had problems, but he'd certainly be able to overcome those problems.
I really had to depend on my parents a lot for everything before I came to Arrowsmith. They'd read stuff onto tapes for me for when I studied so that I could listen to that and study off the tapes.
Jeremy's very good, has always been very good at compensating for his problems. So he'll look at your body language, read your lips, read your mind almost to come up with the answers that he thinks you want, and then you have no idea that he has a problem.
So which ones are you having trouble with?
Just the auditory ones are still.
What was happening was that he was memorizing. He'd memorize the story, and then he could read it to you, but he still was not actually learning to read.
One way that I'd hide my learning disability from my friends is with jokes. If one of my friends would give me a joke to read, I would sort of watch their facial expressions on their face and try to figure out how funny the joke was, and then just chuckle along with them when they showed it to me.
These students are working on the motor symbol sequencing problem area. It's the area that affects the writing process, where they don't get the muscle memory for learning how to write and for symbol patterns. And they always cover their left eye because the right eye is talking to the brain area over here, which is involved in translating thought into the written process. So by covering the one eye, they're getting more stimulation and more exercise into that area, and it will improve their writing.
Barbara Arrowsmith Young is working on 19 brain areas, and it's really hard to design the exercises for these areas because you've got to really isolate them, and the exercises are sometimes quirky and odd and ingenious.
To work the visual memory for symbols, I want to just go in and work that area. So I use foreign languages because I don't want them to put sound to it, which would be another area. I don't want them to put meaning to it, which would be another area. As much as possible, I want to isolate the specific area and exercise that area exclusively.
I think it was in a different... Oh, is that the right?
When Jeremy got his driver's license, We realized that he wasn't able to read the road signs as they were passing by. So we knew that we were going to have to do something in order for him to be able to function in the real world. We live in Haliburton County, in a very rural area, and it's pretty scary for Jeremy to have to move to Toronto because he was going to have to travel on the subway. And when he traveled on the subway, those signs go by pretty fast.
I had to actually count the number of subway stops to school so that I'd make sure that I got off on the right one. But now I find I'm able to read the subway signs, and I'm actually able to get around the city on my own. So that's a big confidence boost. Bilbo was saved by poor luck, for that of chance was the answer. Gollum was disappointed once more. Well, it took me a while to realize the progress that I was making in this school. At first, I didn't really notice anything because it was such a gradual process. But just this last month, I've noticed big improvements in my reading. And it's brought me, well, a lot of confidence. It had made him very hungry indeed.
It was pretty exciting at Christmas time that we asked Jeremy if he would read the Christmas story from the Bible, and he didn't say, no, I can't read. He actually picked it up and read it. No, it wasn't as fluid as it should be for his age, but it was certainly wonderful for us to hear.
I believe that Arrowsmith has basically taken the disability away from Jeremy, that he no longer has a disability. So there definitely is a change, a big change.
This fall I'm going back to regular high school. I'll be 2 years older than all the students there, which will make it kind of unawkward socially, since most of my friends will be heading off to university or college. It's a little scary going back into regular high school because I'm going to try to do the work on my own, to try to do all the reading and writing. It's going to be a lot of hard work.
A lot of kids with learning disabilities don't dare to dream, and they've just stopped dreaming. They have often no sense of a future for themselves, and that's very, very tragic. And I think part of what this work does is allows them to have the capacity to dream.
The Arrowsmith School is located in Midtown Toronto. There are 5 schools in the Toronto Catholic Board, which offer Arrowsmith-type programs, and 3 private schools in Southern Ontario as well, in Hamilton, Bolton, and Vineland. Well, that's the bell. School's out. Paula, time to hit the road.
Thank you for watching Studio 2's special edition on learning disabilities. Good night.
So long, everybody.